we'll be looking at a little bit of biblical stress management so that we can understand what is stress and so that we're able to deal with it more effectively. About the first question, what is stress? It's basically a feeling of inadequacy. It's a feeling of inadequacy that comes in us when we feel that I am not capable of reaching or fulfilling a challenge that has been posed to me. uh, when we feel that what I have, my strength and my capabilities are not enough to meet an external demand that is posed. It can be external demands, like for example, an exam. You feel like you're not able to study well enough for the exam. You don't know well enough for the exam. When you notice that what you need to do and what you are able to do, when there is a difference between that, and that's when stress can arise. There are two kinds of stress. There is eustress and distress. Eustress is when you realize, okay, even though there is a difference between my capabilities and the what's required, I'm still I am able to master it. I'm still able to go into it and be able to do something. Distress is when we realize, no, we are not able, we are not capable of entering into this challenge. What is a stress? And can be different types of stressors, which are the things that can cause stress in us. It can be high external perform demands, like if you're in a school or if you're in a workplace. There'll be timelines, there'll be schedules, there'll be deadlines that we have to keep. There'll be exams that we have to write. Those are external performance demands. Can also be internal performance requirements. That is the pressure that we set on ourselves. In the sense, I have to do this by then, or I have to complete this much of my work before this day. This is the pressure that we set upon ourselves. Can also be time pressure. Can be when we are overloaded with or overwhelmed with so many sensory things. That is more relevant for autistic people. And maybe critical life events like a serious illness or a death in the family, something like that. Or if you're just sick yourself and not able to sleep well, all of this can contribute to a stress state. And one important thing to understand is people are vulnerable to stress in different ways. Maybe you see, oh, why is that person able to cope with the same situation that I'm going through much better than I am? Or that person is not able to cope in the same way that I'm able to cope. It's because every person is individual in how they're able to withstand or in the resilience towards towards stress. And it can be genetic, it can be the way we were raised, but everyone is different in how they're vulnerable to stress. How do we react? There's many different ways in which we react to stress. The first thing to understand is our body reacts by releasing a lot of hormones when we come under stress. When we realize, okay, what I required of me is not what I'm capable of, and when we realize I cannot master this incapability, our body starts to release hormones. And all these hormones are actually very helpful in the short term. For example, you need these hormones like adrenaline. For example, it's one of the hormones that is released in stress. Adrenaline is a very very important hormone. For example, when you're actually, for example, standing face to face with a tiger, you need adrenaline to be able to run away quickly from the tiger and not stand there worrying about something else. So we have it's useful in this kind of short term high stress events. But usually for us, we have prolonged stress, not acute short term stresses. We have stresses that stretch out across months, across weeks, years, even sometimes, based on our work, based on our school, on our projects, things that we're involved in. When we have so many different things all the time just giving us stress, all of these hormones, stress hormones, which are released into the blood, they alter our body in such a way that it is not meant for. Even though these stress hormones are good in the short term, in the long term, they damage and they weaken and they destroy our body, and especially the immune system. How do we notice that we have prolonged stress? These are just a few symptoms of how we can notice, okay, this is why when I have stress, lead to tightness in the muscles, lead to digestive issues where you have a restless stomach. It can lead to headaches. You'll notice that you're getting sicker more often, and also you're just tired. There's no energy, there's no strength. All these are side effects of all the stress hormones which are released in a constant state. There's this transactional stress model just which helps us understand a little bit more about how we perceive stress, or how we are able to judge, evaluate different situations in our life. First, always there's a primary assessment within our mind, where we when we reach a situation, we do this assessment automatically in our head, where we think, okay, is this positive or negative, the situation that I'm in, or the situation, is it relevant for my life, or is it not relevant, irrelevant, is it threatening? And when the second after we evaluate the situation, the next step is we evaluate ourselves, when we think, am I able to answer in this situation? Am I able to stand up for myself in this situation? Where we assess our own capabilities, and we do it. We try to cope with the situation, and we can cope in two different ways. One is problem focus, where we say, okay, I will change the cause of this stressful situation. For example, if you're studying for an exam and you notice, or you have to write an exam in a few days and you notice that it is very difficult, you can try to solve it in two ways. One is where you actually sit down and study for the exam. Second is where you eat chocolates to reduce the stress, reduce that feeling of anxiety. You know, Sometimes that is eating chocolates to calm ourselves down is the emotion focused problem solution, where we try to just push away the feelings. That doesn't change anything about the solution, but it is often an solution, an approach that we take, to try to calm ourselves, soothe ourselves in very high stress situations. And it is it is something, this the shortcuts that we try to take, with soothing ourselves. These are actually shortcuts, because when we do something good, when we just lie down, eat something tasty, we are releasing this hormone called endorphins. We are releasing this chemical substance in our body called endorphins. They make us happy. They give us positive feelings, and they make soothe out the negative feelings. But when we do this through, through binge eating, we do this through distractions like watching videos, or scrolling endlessly on TikTok and Instagram, or even through drugs. All of these will also release endorphins, but it's a shortcut. It's not the real way. It's a quick fix, so it's much less effective than having endorphins being released in a natural way. The natural way is through exercise, when we actually move our body, when we're outside in the nature, when we are with friends and we laugh and we enjoy relationships with other people, when we listen to good music, for example, or just have a good time with our friends. Those are the good effective ways in which we can naturally release endorphins. But oftentimes we tend to try to solve just we don't try to solve the problem, but we try to soothe ourselves. And the problem with that is that leads in the end to social withdrawal. We realize, oh, I can take care of myself much better than other people. So I don't need anyone else. I don't need to go out. I don't need my family. So you end up staying in your room or on your bed the whole time. You don't, in times of stress, you'll feel, I can take care of myself, and you withdraw from other people. And another thing to keep in mind about prolonged stress, when you have stress over a long period of time, is that our body gets used to the stress. Our body gets used to the all of the stress hormones that are floating around in our body, and this weakens us so much. This especially weakens our immune system, where we keep falling sick, where we keep feeling so tired, where, like, I don't have the energy to do anything else. That's also a very important point to notice. Another very important thing is that stress, we have to understand, what does stress produce in us. When we are stressed, it produces three major emotions. First emotion is anger, rage. Stress can make us really angry and frustrated. I've experienced this myself. And it's one thing to keep in mind. It can also make us afraid. It can make us really, really afraid. And the third thing that it does, it can make us feel depressed. So these are three things that we have to keep in mind, because these emotions, we think, oh, stress alle, korpilla, I'll get over it sometime. But the more we expose ourselves to prolonged stress, the more we become angry, we become more afraid, become more depressed. So that we have to consider all of this. Just as a small summary, I've just written down. We it is mainly a feeling of inadequacy. Stress comes when we evaluate a situation, we say, oh, I am inadequate to meet the need. I'm inadequate to meet a challenge. It can be all kinds of stresses, from other people, from yourself, and in your body also. It makes you angry, it makes you afraid and depressed. And if you keep having stress over a long amount of time, it weakens you, it destroys your body. And we tried dealing with stress using this ineffective, emotion focused coping methods. We just soothe ourselves, but does not change anything. So, how can we deal with stress effectively? The main thing is to do is, we have to the root cause, we have to tackle the root cause, which is feeling of inadequacy, where in the moments or in the situations where we notice that we are not adequate, we are not able to meet the challenge. That is the time where we have to reorient our view, we have to reorient our sight, and see, okay, how can I improve, this how can I remove the feeling of inadequacy? And that means we have to invest a lot in all three major relational dimensions in our lives. That means we have to improve our relationship with God, improve our relationship with yourself, with our own self, and with other people. We'll just tackle each of this one by one. We really have to improve our relationship with the Lord, in the sense that we just enjoy the presence of God, where we really spend time with Him in worship and in prayer, where we just without any agenda, just come into the presence of God, say, God, I want to know more about you, I just want to experience you. And the more we come deeper and deeper into the presence of God, the more we get to know the heart of God. The more we realize who we are in Him and who God is to us. When we realize that the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords and the creator of this universe is my Father, He is my God, He is my King, and He is with me, all the time as my shepherd. That will change a lot of the feelings, because we realize when we are inadequate, He is adequate. Even if I'm not able to reach the challenge, He is able to meet the challenge. And even if I am not strong enough, He is strong enough. And when we understand that, when we start to understand more about just who God is and what that means for us, that itself pulls us out of a big pit, and that itself will strengthen us. uh, Another thing we have to do is, we have to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of our body, because sometimes we'll feel, oh, I'm not strong enough, I'm not healthy enough, that's why I'm feeling inadequate. That means we have to take care of our body, we have to take care of our health, we have to take care of our diet, we have to take care of our movement, we have to try our best to be fit, to be healthy. And also, rest is just as important as exercise, because if you keep exercising, that's also a very important thing to know, because we can see, oh, I have to, because I'll do this 150%, where I'll exercise and do something. But rest is just as important as exercise, so we have to learn to keep both of this in a balance, where we exercise and we take care of our body, and also rest, not just in the body but also in the mind. We have to rest emotionally. um, Another thing is very important is, be grateful. We have to learn to be grateful for what we have, because when we when because it's very easy to be resentful and say, oh, ദൈവമേ അത് എനിക്ക് തന്നില്ലല്ലോ, ഇത് അതുകൊണ്ടല്ലേ എനിക്ക് ഇപ്പം ഇങ്ങനെ സ്ട്രെസ് വന്നത്, ദൈവമേ ഈ കഴിവ് എനിക്ക് തന്നില്ലല്ലോ, അതുകൊണ്ടല്ലേ എനിക്ക് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റാത്തത്, അതുകൊണ്ടല്ലേ ശക്തി ഇല്ലാത്തത്. വി ക്യാൻ ബി റിസെന്റ്ഫുൾ, തിങ്ക്, ഓ, എനിക്കില്ല, ബാക്കി എല്ലാവർക്കും കൊണ്ട് എനിക്ക് മാത്രം ഇല്ല എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് വി ക്യാൻ സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ബി റിസെന്റ്ഫുൾ. But we really have to learn to be content in what God has given us. We have to learn to be content in God. That's very important, to develop a grateful attitude in our lives. Another thing that's very important is to eliminate hurry. That we have to simplify our life and slow down. Because we are all very busy people. There's so much to do in our lives. We have so many appointments, so many meetings, so many projects, so many schedules. We have to learn to slow down, and to make time for the important things in our lives. And that is most important thing is God, because it's easy to remove God from our daily life. Because say, oh, they may ഇവിടെ അവിടെ പോകാനുള്ളല്ലോ, ഇപ്പൊ ഇന്ന് പ്രാച്ചില്ലെങ്കിൽ ദൈവത്തിന് അണ്ടർസ്റ്റാൻഡിങ് ഉണ്ടല്ലോ, we'll say. But we have to learn to remove all of the busyness, to slow down and make room for God. We have to learn to downsize expectations, in the sense, sometimes we can start projects with very unrealistic expectations of the outcome, or either of ourselves, where we overestimate our own strength, or we overestimate the strength and the strength of other people even. And then when it does not get fulfilled, we get disappointed, we get angry, we get hurt. So we have to learn to set realistic expectations. Another very important point is we have to understand what makes us stressful, what makes us feel stressed, what triggers us. One important acronym is BALT. We can start, in such situations, we can start ruminating and thinking about the stress analysis when we are bored, when we are angry, lonely, tired, and hungry. In these states of mind, we can start, that can trigger us to start feeling stressful and start feeling restless and discontent. So we have to learn to recognize these situations in our life and learn not to fall into sin in these situations. We have to learn to fight this feeling of inadequacies by investing in our relationships with other people. We have to learn to really enjoy our time with our friends, enjoy our time with family, with other people in the church, because it is our relationship with others that really helps us and strengthens us. We have to learn to forgive other people, not quickly hold a grudge and say, oh, ആ പുള്ളി ഇങ്ങനെ ചെയ്തോണ്ട് ഞാൻ ഒരിക്കലും സംസാരിക്കുന്നില്ല. It's because that is I mean, of course, you have to learn to identify toxic relationships and stay away from those. But in the sense, we should not cut ourselves off from people just for small mistakes, just for small, say, oh, because of that I will not speak to them anymore. We should not do that. We should be slow to judge, quick to forgive. uh, and one very important thing is help other people. Just go out and help other people. When you notice the world does not revolve around you, when you notice there are other people who with needs, other people with stress, there are other people who need help. When we realize that, we say, oh, they may എനിക്ക് മാത്രമല്ല കുഴപ്പം, oh, they may my problems are nothing compared to other people. And that itself is just enough to understand, okay, that will help us to come down from a stressful state, in that we help other people, just be available. Just say, oh, how can I help you today? Can I give you some food, get you some food? Can I get you a gift? Just go and help other people. Open up to your friends, to your family, to people who you trust, and don't hide anything, because such feelings, they grow and they become most powerful in the dark, in the when they're hidden. So don't hide anything in the dark. Open up to people you trust, and if need be, seek professional help from professional psychotherapists, from professional counselors. They will help you. There are a few biblical examples of how people dealt with stress in their lives. David, even though he faced a giant, even though he was hunted by his king, even though he faced so many battles, and even though he had a rebellious son, his way to deal with stress was just worshiping God. He would go in the presence of God, write songs, worship, and sing to God. So that is how David dealt with stress. Daniel, even though there was a government decree written against his prayer, he still didn't stop praying. He valued his relationship with God, that prioritized that over everything else. Even when he was thrown to the lions, he continued to trust God. Esther, Queen Esther, she got to know of this plan that Haman wanted to kill all of the Jews, and even then she didn't get discouraged. She fasted. She told other people to fast and pray, and then she went to the king. Pragmatic steps. She took practical steps. She didn't just pray. She also went forward and spoke with the king about it. Joseph, even though he was betrayed by his brothers, even though he was wrongfully imprisoned for something he didn't do, he still stayed in the will of God. He did not go to the left or to the right. He stayed obedient to God. He did not fall into sin. And we know how God blessed him. Paul, even though so many times he was beaten and stoned and whipped and shipwrecked for this ministry, even then The joy of the Lord strengthened him. We can read in his letters the how he was captured and captivated by the joy of God. And even Jesus himself, he sweat blood, tears of blood, not tears. He sweat drops of blood, and that just shows how much stress he was undergoing that moment. The capillaries near his sweat glands burst, and the blood poured out into his sweat glands and came out along with the sweat. That just shows the immense stress he was facing in that moment. But even then, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. He knew the plan of God, the will of God, and so because of that, he knew that this suffering, suffering is nothing in the light of what God has prepared for him. Now we come to another topic. Just as unexpected as this slide, something can come. It's called a panic attack, where we feel helpless, where we feel paralyzed, where we feel out of the blue, where we feel, oh no, Tata, there's something happened. I'm not able to go ahead. So I'll just try to decode with you what a panic attack is. It's a sudden onset of this intense feeling of anxiety, of dread, even when you logically see there is no danger for me. Even when you see with your brain there is no danger, but your body is reacting like it's going to die. And we cannot predict it. Sometimes it just comes, we don't know, and we start to get afraid of being afraid. When because panic attacks keep happening, it's a repeated pattern, and then we slowly start to get afraid of being afraid. And it's very it's it brings us drags us down into a spiral of fear. Here also it's so much vulnerability that adds to why this comes up in our lives. Can also happen because of different stresses within our lives, which happen when you're growing up. Maybe with sexual abuse, maybe there was a death in the family, or sickness, or maybe something current that's going on, or sickness or anything like that. What do we feel, when we go through a panic attack? These are some symptoms that people have described all over the world. You don't have to have all of this to have to have a panic attack. Some people will just have one of this, but it's that feeling of intense fear and anxiety coupled with some of these symptoms. Your heart can start beating very irregularly, very fast. You start sweating everywhere. You can start shaking with a dry mouth. You feel like it's very dry. You feel you can't breathe properly. You feel your chest is getting tight or it's hurting. You feel like you want to vomit. Sometimes you'll feel like stomach, it's just restless everywhere. It just feels weird. You feel dizzy, lightheaded, like you're going to fall. You feel like you're detached from your body, like you feel, oh, this it's the situation is so intense that you feel like you're detaching from your body, and you're watching someone else going through all of the situation, all of the pain and the stress and anxiety. It's a very, very weird situation that happens. That's called derealization or depersonalization. And you feel like, oh, I'm going to go crazy. Oh, and you can also have this dread. Oh, ഇപ്പം മരിക്കും. I will fall down and die now. അങ്ങനത്തെ ഒരു fear വരും. What causes us to react like this? One major thing to understand is it can be a model that we have learned from our parents, learned from other people in our family. When we have seen how they react to stress, we've seen other family members and friends react to stress. We learn, and that and imprints itself into our brain. Or even when children go up overprotected, they are not exposed to any kind of stress at all. And suddenly, when they go out into the real world and they experience a small stress, for them, because they've not experienced anything else before, the small stress will trigger so much anxiety in them, and even that can lead to panic attack. Cognitive models are how we evaluate situations, how we evaluate new things in our life. What happens is we misinterpret our bodily situations. uh, like, for example, if our heart starts beating rapidly, if you're exercising and our heart starts beating faster than usual, Suddenly you'll stop and say, why is my heart beating faster? You'll forget that you were exercising. And then suddenly it starts beating and like, oh, something wrong with my heart. Am I going to die? Am I going to fall? And you perceive this situation in a wrong way. It bends reality. Your brain will bend and warp reality to make something that is not there. And then we think, oh, I'm not able to cope with this, I'm going to fall down and die. That kind of feeling will come where we feel, oh, I'm not equipped to handle this. Another thing to understand is we can get conditioned to react in this way. This is classical conditioning. If you maybe you've heard of Pavlov's dog, where a bell is rung when a dog is hungry. A bell is rung to see how the dog reacts. And then the bell is rung together with the bell is just the bell alone is, for example, this neutral stimulus. It does nothing with the dog. But then you put a piece of meat before the dog, it'll start drooling. So if you put the bell and the meat together, the dog suddenly associates the bell with the meat. Now, when we hit the bell, even when no meat is there, the dog will start drooling. Just like that, we can also develop, get conditioned to react to normal things in a very fearful way. We can, just very normal things. We'll get panicked, we'll get anxiety, and that's just to understand that. And sometimes it can also be negative reinforcement. And we're like, oh, that situation is uncomfortable, that situation is painful, or we're just like, that causes a lot of stress to me, so I'll avoid it, I'll stay at home, I won't go there, I won't do it, I won't study. Exam is causing so much stress, so I will not study, for example. So what happens? Exam is there, but I decide I'm not studying. Okay, that immediate fear is gone. Where you're like, okay, I'm not studying, so no problem. But what happens is that just leads to more stress and more stress and more stress. When we avoid, that leads to fear, and that fear leads to avoiding again, and that leads to more fear. So it's just a spiral that keeps getting strengthened, which in a feedback loop strengthen itself, and it prevents us from learning how to correct it. This is something called the visual cycle of fear. We can perceive anxiety, and we can have uh, how do we reach that point of anxiety in the bottom? It's usually when we see an external stimulus, like a spider, for example. We see a spider outside, and they're like, ooh, I'm afraid of this. You perceive it. Am I afraid of the spider? And then you start thinking about it, like, yeah, I'm afraid of the spider. And that suddenly starts to make us feel anxious. That starts to make us feel scared. And what does that do? We learned about stress. I told about stress in the beginning. It will release all these hormones. It'll make our heart go faster. It'll make us sweat more. And what happens? When our body reacts this way, now you're focusing on your body. Now you've forgotten about the spider. You're focusing on your body and like, oh, my heart is going fast. And now you're focused on, is my body wrong? Am I wrong? And then all of these thoughts will cause even more anxiety. And we continue circling in this roundabout of fear when we are not able to come out of it. So the key thing to understand is we adopt wrong thought patterns and wrong behavior patterns over time. Over the years, we adapt and learn wrong thought patterns. Thought patterns means that we misinterpret reality. We are not able to correctly estimate either the threat or ourselves. We overestimate the threat and we think, that is too much. When it is in fact a very normal thing, our brain over interprets it, overestimates it, and underestimates our own strength. That these are the wrong thought patterns we did. Oh, I am weak. I am, I'm worthless. That kinds of thoughts. That it changes reality in our brain. And the other thing is wrong behavior patterns. This is what I spoke about, the avoidance, where we learn to avoid other people, where we learn to avoid other situations. That makes us become afraid in ourselves, and that strengthens itself in a feedback loop. What this happens is this we learn this wrong thought patterns, wrong behavior patterns over the years, and it finally results in us not being able to handle the stress and anxiety in our life, and it will all just burst out in one moment. Even when we are not perceiving the outside, there is nothing at the moment which is threatening me. Even then, all this anxiety in us will just burst out. which feels like an uncontrollable and paralyzing experience. How do we come out of this? Let's just speak about three different situations and how we can uh, overcome this. First is when I feel like I'm in an acute panic attack. What can I do then? In the moment when I feel like feeling like that, what can I do? The second thing is I'll show you what is important to break the wrong thought and behavior patterns, so we can understand, okay, why am I thinking wrong? Why am I acting wrong? So we can understand that to break it. And the third thing is replacing those wrong thought patterns and behavior patterns with the right patterns. So the first thing, that when you're caught in in an acute situation, this is 5 4 3 2 1 grounding technique. You can just stop and just take a few moments. See, okay, five things I can see. I can see there's a mic. I can see there's a book. There's a table. There's a wall. There's the light. Five things I can see. Four things I can touch. I can touch the table. I can touch my clothes. I can touch my hair. I can touch the laptop. Three things you can hear. I can hear the birds. I can hear the traffic. I can hear the laptop fan. Two things I can smell. I can, because it rained outside, I can smell the petrichor, and I can also smell some bread. One thing I can taste. You can have some chocolate with you, some small mint or chewing gum. Just put it in your mouth. Just think for a moment about how it feels in your mouth, how it tastes. All of this will break you out of the cycle of fear, and it will just focus your attention outside of yourself. Because the problem with all of this anxiety is it keeps your focus in yourself, within yourself. You have to bring that focus outside of yourself. So this is a good way of breaking that spiral. Another thing is just take a few moments to breathe in and out. This like it says inhale as you count 1 2 3 in your brain. So now I have just shown an example of how to do it, but don't count like I did. Count in your head, so you can inhale and exhale freely. This has nothing to do with yoga or anything to do like that kind of meditation. This is a breathing technique that causes your heart to slow down. That's all that it is. It just takes your heart when we breathe slowly and in a controlled manner, our heart also has to go slower. It cannot physically cannot continue beating at that high speed. It has to slow down. So this is taking back control of your own body. The third thing you can do is it's called a muscle relaxation. And this is when you, for example, just lie down, for example, and take your hands, tense them up, and for a few seconds, and then release it. So what you're doing in this exercise is you are introducing tension. You're introducing tension in your body, and when you're doing that in your body and you release it, that causes in your brain, it's a very interesting pathway. When you release the tension in your muscles, it causes the tension in your thoughts also to come down. It's a very interesting connection between physical tension and release that you can also do. What are the long term things that we can do, like longer term things that we can do? It's something called cognitive behavioral therapy that is offered by many psychotherapists, but I of course we cannot do that now, but I can introduce what is done in CBT so you can understand what it is about. The first part is that there'll be a psychoeducation where you understand what is anxiety. You'll understand, yes, it's something you need, but the changes in your body is harmless. It's just under making you understand that the threat is not a problem. It's really harmless and you are fine. It's just helping us understand that. And then we can understand for ourselves, okay, how can I reasonably order my anxiety and fear so that we are not really overwhelmed all of the time. And then we will talk with the people just to understand, okay, what am I feeling in the moment. They can write it down so that they can read back and see, oh, Anaram, I was feeling like this. Why did I feel like that? And they can start thinking about it to just understand, okay, why am I reacting this way? And then understanding the vicious cycle of fear, which I already presented, so that we can understand what is happening in my brain. Why is my reality being changed in my brain? so we can understand why do I avoid things, situations, and people, so that we can just get a better understanding. Second thing is exposition, where it's all about understanding that your symptoms, for example, when your heart goes fast, or when your stomach is upset, or physical symptoms like that, or sweating, or that restlessness. Just understand it's normal. It's okay. You're not in danger. You are fine. You can endure it. You can go through it. Nothing will happen. You will not die. Third thing is understanding and changing the thoughts, because there'll be so many wrong thoughts in our brains. For example, I will drop dead right now. ഇപ്പം ഞാൻ മരിക്കും. Or if I make mistakes, I'm a worthless person. I have no value. That kind of thoughts. Or other assumptions like I must never show weakness. I must always be strong. All of these assumptions will really hinder us from growing, and it will hinder us from finding healing. So we have to learn to identify such wrong thoughts in our brain, and break its power. And there are thoughts about our own thoughts that we have in our brain, and that's what controls the way we feel. So we have to learn to change the way we think about our own thoughts, and that itself will be able to provide a great help for our lives. For example, learning to distance yourself from your thoughts, it can be a great thing. For example, here, instead of thinking I will fail, in an example, oh yeah, I will fail, I will not pass, you detach yourself from the thought and say, what am I thinking? You say, I have the thought that I'll fail. I am thinking, the thought is coming into my mind that I will fail. And so you can it's easier to then realize, oh, it's just my brain that is making me think this. It is just my anxiety that is bringing up the thoughts. It's easy to detach yourself from the thoughts and understand, okay, it is just about it from the anxiety, it's just from the stress, nothing else. It is okay. As I said about attention, anxiety will trap our focus within ourselves. But understanding and breaking the power of stress over our lives is forcing that attention outwards, so we can look outwards, look to other people, look to God. Other long-term strategies are just teach yourself to stay in the present moment, not think too far ahead and worry about what will happen 10 years from now. Keep yourself fit and active. We already spoke about it. Dare yourself to do small acts of bravery. One thing that happens is we lose self-esteem when we are, with panic attacks, with chronic stress, we can lose self-esteem. We think, oh, I cannot do anything. I'm worthless. I'm weak. But instead, do small things. Where like, oh, if I was a little braver, I could have done that. Do it. Do it. Be brave and do small things. And when you see you were able to do it, because you are capable of it. When you do all these small things, you will grow you'll become a little more braver, and they'll build self-esteem. That's very important. Socialize. Go talk with other people. When you isolate yourself, when you avoid other people, that will withdraw. When you withdraw from social interactions, that will really uh, pull us deeper into the spiral. So we have to learn to interact with other people. Challenge your self-talk. That's what we say. What am I thinking? What am I thinking about my thoughts? We have to learn to change and break all of this meta cognitions. We have to learn to change all these false thoughts. Be kind to yourself. Don't take up so many things, and don't beat yourself up and say I'm worthless, I'm no value. Understand who you are in Jesus. Understand that you are loved by God, and that he has a plan for your life, and understand that that gives you value, that gives you worth. A very interesting strategy is plan worry time. When you're in the day and you notice you have these anxious thoughts that are coming up, say, right now I don't have the time. Right now, I'll not think about it. Brain, give me these thoughts later at in the evening 5 p.m. Right now, I'm busy. Uh, Later in the day, you sit down, you just write those thoughts on the paper, and then you just read, and then you will understand for yourself. Oh, that is such a stupid thought. That is just stress, nothing else. I'll close with this one verse, because it's about even just for normal stress, and even for the big panic attacks. It's change. It's all about changing the way we think, and that can, even though there are, all of these were good suggestions. The main thing is we need God to change the way we think, because that's the only way that we can get true and lasting healing, true and lasting change. So, just as it says in Romans 2, 12:2. Don't copy the behaviors and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good, which is pleasing, which is perfect. And that's what we need for our lives. We need to know the will of God for our lives. And let us surrender ourselves into the hands of God and say, God, change my mind, change the way I think, change the way I act, change the way I react to situations in my life. So may God bless you with these words.